Episode 11, The Collector's Trail. Dawn painted the forest in shades of gray and silver as Sabrina followed the trail of magical energy through the misty undergrowth. Noah kept pace beside her, his equipment humming softly in the early morning stillness. Through the fragmented lens, she could see ghostly footprints glowing with a familiar spring magic signature, the same one they'd traced to the collector's previous locations. "The residue is stronger here," Sabrina said, adjusting the lens to focus on the brightest traces. "They've been through this area multiple times." The seedling's influence rippled through nearby plants, creating a subtle path of slightly swaying branches and trembling leaves. Quill's essence guided them deeper into the woods, where the mist grew thicker and the magical traces more concentrated. They came upon an ancient oak tree, its trunk broader than both of them combined. Sabrina's breath caught as she spotted the glyph burned into its bark. The symbol looked familiar, she'd seen similar protection runes in the Historical Society's archives, but something was off about its execution. Raising the lens, she studied the magical structure of the mark. "This was a traditional ward," she explained, tracing the altered lines. "But look how they've twisted the energy flow. Instead of creating a barrier, it's designed to pull magic inward and corrupt it." Noah recorded the glyph with his equipment. "The energy signature matches our other samples. Definitely the collector's work." As they pressed forward, Sabrina felt Quill's agitation through the surrounding plants. The seedlings' glow intensified, their usual gentle pulse becoming sharp and erratic. Through their connection, she sensed an urgent warning about what lay ahead. The trees opened into a circular clearing, and Sabrina stopped short. The ground was scorched black in a perfect circle, as if burned by an intense magical fire. Scattered around its perimeter, familiar crystal fragments caught the early morning light, the same type they'd discovered in the maze beneath the Tree of Seasons. "Noah, look at this." She knelt to examine one of the crystals through the lens. "These have been deliberately shattered. The breaking points are too precise to be accidental." Noah swept his detection equipment in a slow arc around the circle. "I'm picking up multiple magical frequencies, layered like sediment. Each one shows a slightly different variation of the same ritual." Sabrina followed the magical traces with the lens, noting how each layer showed increasingly refined technique. "They've been practicing," she said, understanding dawning. "Testing different approaches until they got it right." The lens revealed more details as she studied the clearing. Broken artifacts lay partially buried in the scorched earth, arranged in a pattern that made her stomach clench. She'd seen this configuration before, in the records of the Twilight Sanctuary's destruction. These were pieces from recent thefts, museum displays, private collections, even items from the Historical Society, all modified to amplify spring magic while dampening Halloween energy. At the circle's center stood a crude altar, roughly carved from what appeared to be a fallen tree trunk. Sabrina approached it carefully, aware of the unstable magical energies swirling around the structure. The symbols carved into its surface combined spring and Halloween magic in ways that made her magical senses recoil. "These markings," she said, comparing them to the warnings they'd seen in the Gilded Grove. "They're designed to create deliberate instability. See how the spring and Halloween symbols intersect? It forces the energies to clash instead of flowing together naturally." Noah's equipment crackled as he scanned the altar. "The magical buildup here is off the charts. Whatever they're planning, this was just the testing ground." Sabrina traced one of the carved symbols with her finger, feeling the discordant energies beneath its surface. The design was elegant in its malevolence, a perfect mirror of the warnings they'd seen about magical manipulation. Through the lens, she could see how each component had been carefully crafted to maximize the destructive potential of conflicting magical forces. The seedlings pulsed with renewed urgency, drawing her attention to subtle details she might have missed. Traces of magical residue formed patterns around the altar, showing how energy had been channeled and redirected during previous attempts. Each trial had brought the collector closer to their goal, refining their technique with methodical precision. They've been thorough, she said, studying the layers of magical experimentation. These aren't just tests, they're dress rehearsals. Everything here is designed to replicate what happened at the Twilight Sanctuary, but on a larger scale. The morning mist began to thin as sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting long shadows across the scorched circle. Through the lens, Sabrina watched the interplay of light and magical energy, noting how the clearing's design focused power toward its center like a lens concentrating sunlight. Sabrina watched in amazement as Quill's seedlings burst from the scorched earth, their growth accelerated by the residual energy. Delicate vines and luminous flowers spread across the clearing in an intricate pattern, revealing what her normal vision couldn't see. The plants traced lines of power that ran deep beneath the surface, forming a complex network that connected to Hallowville's ley lines. "This is bigger than we thought," she said, adjusting the fragmented lens to better observe the underground channels. The seedling's growth had exposed a sophisticated system designed to tap directly into the town's magical foundation. Through the lens, layers of magical residue became visible like rings in a tree trunk. Each circle held the collector's distinct signature, but the progression told a story. The earliest attempts were crude, with erratic energy patterns and unstable formations. But as she followed the chronological trail, the signatures became more refined, more controlled. "Look at how precise these recent marks are," she told Noah, pointing to the newest traces. The collector's magic had evolved from wild experimentation to something far more dangerous, methodical, and exact. Noah's voice drew her attention to a hollow oak at the circle's edge. "Sabrina, over here." He pulled a leather-bound journal from a hidden compartment, its pages crackling with age and magical residue. She joined him, examining the documentation through the lens. Detailed diagrams of the Tree of Seasons filled the pages, accompanied by meticulous notes about energy fluctuations and portal frequencies. What caught her attention was the handwriting. It shifted between at least 3 distinct styles. "They're working together," she said, turning pages filled with calculations and magical formulas. "The collector isn't alone in this." The seedlings pulsed with renewed urgency, their stems bending toward a spot several yards away. Following their guidance, Sabrina discovered a hidden cache beneath a false rock formation. Inside lay dozens of crystals, each one corrupted and crackling with unstable energy. Through the lens, she could see how the crystals had been systematically altered. The earliest specimens showed signs of crude magical manipulation, but the later ones demonstrated a refined technique, the same one now affecting Hallowville's protective artifacts. "These were their test pieces," she explained, carefully examining one of the corrupted crystals. "They practiced here until they perfected the method. Each crystal shows a slightly different approach until they found what worked." Returning to the main ritual circle, Sabrina studied its design more carefully. The lens revealed layers of complexity she'd missed at first glance. The circle wasn't just meant to channel magic, its very structure was engineered to create a controlled magical collapse. "This is a replica," she realized, comparing it to her memories of the Twilight Sanctuary records. "But they've added something new." She traced the additional patterns with her finger, feeling the magical resonance. "These sigils aren't just for destruction, they're designed to capture and redirect the released energy." Quill's essence suddenly surged through the nearby plants, causing them to tremble and point toward the western edge of the clearing. Sabrina raised the lens, and her heart jumped at what she saw. Fresh magical traces, no more than a few hours old, led away from the circle in erratic patterns. The tracks told a story of hurried movement, scuffed earth, broken twigs, and most telling, scattered bursts of unstable magical energy. The collector had been here recently, and based on the chaotic nature of their departure, they hadn't expected to be discovered so soon. "They know we're getting close," she said, studying the fresh traces through the lens. "These tracks show signs of panic. They left in a hurry, probably when they realized someone was investigating their activities." The seedlings continued to grow, revealing more of the underground network with each passing minute. Sabrina watched as their roots mapped out channels that spread like a web beneath Hallowville, all designed to tap into the town's magical essence. The scope of the collector's plan became clearer. They weren't just trying to disrupt the town's magic, they were creating a system to harvest its power. Noah carefully photographed and documented each new discovery while Sabrina used the lens to analyze the magical signatures. The combination of the seedling's revelation and the lens's insight painted a disturbing picture of careful planning and escalating ambition. The channels all lead back to the Tree of Seasons, she noted, tracing the underground pathways. Everything they've done here was practice for something bigger. They're not just trying to replicate the Twilight Sanctuary's collapse, they're trying to control it, to harness that kind of power deliberately. The morning sun now fully illuminated the clearing, but instead of dispelling the site's sinister nature, the daylight only emphasized the calculated precision of its design. Each component, from the corrupted crystals to the channeling sigils, had been refined through careful experimentation. The collector hadn't just been practicing, they'd been perfecting their technique, preparing for something far more ambitious. Sabrina was about to suggest they pack up their findings when Quill's energy surged through the clearing. The plants around a messy pile of ritual debris suddenly bent inward, their leaves and stems straining towards something hidden beneath. She raised the fragmented lens, and her breath caught a pure, crystalline signature of magic pulsed beneath the refuse, completely unlike the corrupted energies they'd been finding. "There's something different here," she told Noah, already moving toward the pile. Through the lens, the clean magical signature stood out like a beacon against the murky residue of the collector's work. "Help me clear this away." They worked methodically, Noah documenting each layer while Sabrina used the lens to ensure they didn't disturb any volatile magical traces. As they neared the bottom, a shaft of moonlight broke through the canopy, catching something metallic. Sabrina's heart quickened as she carefully brushed away the last bits of debris. "It's a medallion shard," she breathed, studying the perfectly preserved piece. Intricate seasonal markings covered its surface, each line and curve precise and purposeful. Noah pulled out his detection equipment, frowning at the readings. "These frequencies." He adjusted several dials. "They're perfectly balanced between seasonal energies. Nothing else in the site comes close to this kind of harmony." Sabrina reached for the shard, her fingers hovering momentarily before making contact. The moment she touched it, a gentle pulse of magic rippled through her palm, autumn's crisp energy intertwined seamlessly with spring's vibrant force. Through the lens, she watched the natural confluence of power flow and dance, so different from the harsh, forced modifications evident in the collector's work. The plants around them swayed as Quill's essence gathered, drawn to the shard's pure energy. The moment Quill's power touched the medallion piece, Sabrina's vision shifted. She found herself watching ethereal figures performing an ancient ritual for complete medallions floating in perfect geometric alignment. Each one channeled its season's power, creating a balanced matrix of energy that felt both familiar and impossibly complex. "Noah," she said, blinking as her normal vision returned. "These medallions, they were created to maintain balance between all 4 seasons. Not just autumn and spring, but summer and winter too." The shard in her hand began to hum, its energy reaching out to interact with the magical traces scattered throughout the clearing. Through the lens, Sabrina watched new patterns emerge in the collector's ritual circle. What had seemed like random corruption now revealed itself as precisely targeted interference. "Look at this," Noah said, checking his instruments. "Each corrupted artifact has a specific frequency signature. They're not just damaged, they're tuned to disrupt different aspects of the medallion's power." Sabrina brought the lens closer to the shard, noticing tiny markings along its edge that she'd initially missed. "There are inscriptions here." She traced them carefully with her finger, feeling the ancient magic respond to her touch. Through the lens, the markings transformed into complex magical formulae, a blueprint for proper seasonal alignment. "These aren't just decorative," she explained, turning the shard to catch better light. "They're instructions, showing exactly how the medallions were meant to work together. Each season has its own resonance pattern, but they're designed to harmonize with the others." The lens revealed layers of magical theory encoded in the tiny scripts, precise ratios of seasonal energy, proper alignment angles, and delicate balancing techniques that put the collector's crude manipulations to shame. This wasn't just a powerful artifact, it was a manual for maintaining Hallowville's natural magical equilibrium. Noah photographed the inscriptions while Sabrina continued studying them through the lens. The medallions weren't just tools, she said, understanding dawning as she decoded more of the ancient instructions. They were keys to a whole system of seasonal balance. Each one amplified and regulated its season's power, but they had to work together to maintain stability. The shard's magic pulsed in response to her comprehension, sending out waves of harmonious energy that made the corrupted artifacts in the clearing shudder. Through the lens, Sabrina watched the conflicting frequencies clash and spark. The collector's modifications weren't random acts of destruction, they were calculated attempts to shatter this ancient system of balance. Quill's essence flowed through nearby plants in an agitated pattern, drawing Sabrina's attention to how the shard's energy interacted with the root network. The medallion's power seemed to strengthen the natural connections between seasonal forces, reinforcing rather than forcing them to change. Sabrina watched in amazement as the shard's energy rippled outward, causing Quill's seedlings to burst from the earth in a precise formation. The tiny plants grew rapidly, their stems and leaves arranging themselves into what she recognized as Hallowville's layout. Through the fragmented lens, she saw points of concentrated magic pulsing at specific locations throughout the miniature map. "Look at this pattern," she said, tracing the formation with her finger. "These aren't random placements. Each point marks where a complete medallion once stood." The seedlings swayed in response to her touch, their magical signatures intensifying. They formed a protective network around the town. Noah adjusted his scanning equipment, frowning at the readings. The energy signature from this shard, it's remarkably similar to the Tree of Seasons. He showed her the display, where two wavelength patterns almost perfectly overlapped. Whatever created these medallions specifically designed them to work with the tree's natural magic. The revelation sparked something in Sabrina's mind. She placed her hand directly on the shard, channeling a gentle stream of her own magic into it. The metal warmed beneath her touch, and suddenly her vision filled with fragments of ancient knowledge, like memories that weren't her own. They were meant to be conduits, she said, watching the images flow through her mind. The complete set created a self-sustaining network, drawing power from the tree and distributing it evenly throughout Hallowville. Through the lens, she could see the ghost of that network, a delicate web of balanced seasonal energy that once protected the entire town. The plants around them stirred as Quill's essence gathered more strongly. The familiar magical presence interacted with the shard, revealing new layers of information. Sabrina observed how the medallion's very structure naturally repelled corrupting influences, like a magical immune system. The way it's constructed, she explained to Noah, watching the interplay of energies through the lens, it's not just about power. The medallions were crafted to maintain their own integrity. That's why the collector has to work so hard to corrupt artifacts, they're fighting against these natural protective properties. Noah documented her observations while continuing his scans. If we understand how this protection works, we might be able to shield other artifacts. As they studied the shard, it suddenly pulsed with stronger energy, aligning with the remnants of power in the ritual circle. Through the lens, Sabrina saw two distinct patterns of magical flow, the collector's forced, discordant channels contrasting sharply with the shard's natural, harmonious currents. "This is what balanced magic should look like," she said, gesturing to the smooth, elegant flow emanating from the shard. "The collector's modifications are like." She searched for the right comparison, like trying to force a river to flow uphill. The seedling map trembled as Quill's essence intensified, creating a resonance between the shard and the distant Tree of Seasons. The lens revealed a stunning vision of possibility, the complete set of medallions working in concert with the tree, their combined power not just protecting Hallowville but actively repairing tears in its magical fabric. The medallions weren't just defensive, Sabrina said, understanding blooming as she watched the vision unfold. They were part of a restoration system. If we could find all four, She traced the patterns of energy flow through the lens, seeing how each medallion would contribute to the whole. The autumn medallion stabilized transitional magic, while spring balanced growth and renewal. Summer and winter medallions regulated the extremes, creating perfect equilibrium. The seedling map pulsed in time with her observations, each point brightening as she recognized its purpose. Through the lens, she could see how the original network had maintained itself, each medallion drawing and distributing exactly the power needed to keep Hallowville's magic in harmony. The forest's natural symphony of rustling leaves and birdsong cut off as if someone had flipped a switch. Sabrina felt the change immediately, that distinctive pressure in the air that preceded magical disturbances. An unnatural wind whipped up around them, carrying a bizarre mix of autumn leaves and spring cherry blossoms in an aggressive spiral. Through the fragmented lens, she observed distinct patterns in the swirling debris, deliberate geometric formations that no natural phenomenon would create. The magical signatures pulsed with purpose, their rhythms too precise to be random. "Noah, are you seeing this?" She gestured toward his monitoring equipment. He studied the readouts with growing concern. These energy patterns, they match both the ritual site and those portal disruptions from last week. Almost exactly. The vortex intensified, autumn leaves and spring petals weaving together into a dense barrier across their path. Through the lens, Sabrina watched opposing seasonal energies clash and merge in ways that defied natural law. The wall of swirling elements crackled with conflicting magic, autumn's decay fighting against spring's renewal in a dangerous dance. A familiar warmth spread through the ground beneath her feet as Quill's essence surged through the nearby plants. The seedlings erupted from the earth in a perfect circle around them, their stems interweaving to form a protective dome. Through the lens, Sabrina watched the vortex probe their shelter with tendrils of magic, testing for weak points with an almost clinical precision. "It's searching for vulnerabilities," she said, tracking the methodical pattern. "Like it's being guided by intelligence rather than just raw magic." The medallion shard in her hand grew warm, its balanced energy pulsing in response to the threat. Each pulse created momentary rifts in the vortex's structure, brief windows where its chaotic elements fell into natural harmony. The pattern was clear: whatever force created this barrier specifically wanted to prevent them from leaving with their discovery. Sabrina felt Quill's presence strengthen through the seedling network, offering support and guidance. Drawing on their connection, she began channeling magic through the interwoven plants. The lens revealed how their combined energy, either fully spring nor autumn but a perfect blend of both, naturally disrupted the vortex's chaotic elements. "The readings are shifting," Noah reported, eyes fixed on his equipment. "Whatever's controlling this thing is adjusting its approach." The vortex transformed, now incorporating deadly new elements. Razor-sharp ice crystals materialized alongside thorned vines, their deadly points glinting in the filtered sunlight. Noah's scanner chirped urgently. "This is definitely being controlled remotely," he said, studying the new data. "There's a clear command signature, but it's being bounced through multiple magical relays. Someone's coordinating this from a distance." Sabrina maintained her focus on the seedling network, feeling how Quill's essence strengthened their natural defenses. Through the lens, she watched their combined magic create patterns of perfect seasonal balance, autumn's wisdom tempering spring's enthusiasm, either force trying to overwhelm the other. The vortex pressed harder against their shelter, ice crystals scraping against the dome of intertwined seedlings, while thorned vines probed for gaps. Each assault followed a precise pattern, testing new angles and combinations with mechanical efficiency. The medallion shard pulsed stronger in Sabrina's grip, its energy synchronizing with Quill's network to reinforce their defenses. "Can you track the source?" Sabrina asked, maintaining her concentration on the protective magic. Noah adjusted his equipment, frowning at the readings. "It's bouncing between at least 5 different relay points. Whoever's behind this really doesn't want to be found." The vortex's attacks grew more sophisticated, now targeting specific nodes in their defensive network that the lens revealed as crucial junctions. Sabrina felt the strain of maintaining the balance, but Quill's steady presence helped her adjust their magical flow to compensate for each new assault. Through the lens, she watched the intricate dance of energies, their balanced, harmonious defense against the vortex's increasingly calculated chaos. The medallion shard continued its steady pulse, each wave of energy revealing more about how the original network must have functioned. Sabrina closed her eyes, recalling the intricate pathways of the rooted maze. The way those ancient roots had shifted and flowed reminded her of something essential about magical harmony. Drawing on that memory, she reached out to Quill's essence threading through the seedlings. Together, they began weaving a new pattern. Rather than fighting against the vortex's chaotic energy, they created channels for it to flow naturally. Like water finding its course, the conflicting seasonal forces began to settle into more stable configurations. Autumn's decay balanced spring's growth, neither dominating but both contributing to a greater whole. The energy patterns are starting to normalize, Noah called out, his voice barely audible over the whirling elements. Through the fragmented lens, Sabrina watched their progress. Golden threads of balanced magic spread through the vortex's structure, calming its more volatile sections. But just as they established a rhythm, the vortex pulsed with renewed intensity. A wave of pure magical force slammed against their defenses, making the seedling dome creak and bend. The medallion shard suddenly grew warm in her pocket, humming with its own resonance. As she pulled it out, its energy flared brilliantly. Through the lens, Sabrina watched in amazement as the shard projected a perfect lattice of balanced seasonal magic. Like a master architect's blueprint, it showed exactly how the energies should flow. That's it, she breathed, adjusting her technique to match the shard's pattern. The natural harmony it demonstrated was exactly what they needed. A sharp crack split the air as a precise bolt of magic struck Noah's monitoring equipment. The device sparked and sputtered, its readings going haywire. More attacks followed, each targeting his instruments with surgical precision. "They're trying to blind us," Noah said, diving to protect his backup scanner. Sabrina felt Quill's essence respond instantly, extending their protective network. Nearby shrubs and vines twisted upward, forming a secondary barrier around Noah and his remaining equipment. She maintained focus on their main defense, trusting Quill to handle the new threat. The vortex's attacks grew more sophisticated, but something about their rhythm tickled her memory. The Gilded Grove's carvings had shown similar patterns, artificial constructs designed to destabilize natural magic. More importantly, they'd revealed how such constructs could be undone. "The control pattern," she muttered, studying the energy flows through the lens. "It's like a weave, pull the right thread." Working with Quill's essence, she began targeting specific points in the vortex's structure. Rather than meeting force with force, they introduced subtle discordant notes into its rhythm. Like a complex musical piece falling out of tune, the vortex's careful orchestration began to falter. The medallion shard resonated more strongly with each successful disruption. Its pure, balanced energy created ripples that spread through the chaos, showing how artificial the vortex's construction truly was. Through the lens, Sabrina watched these ripples dissolve sections of the magical storm like sunlight burning away morning fog. "The readings are collapsing," Noah reported, checking his remaining scanner. "Whatever was controlling it is losing its grip." With a final surge of balanced energy, the vortex's structure completely unraveled. The leaves and petals fell lifeless to the ground, their magical animation gone. Through their connection to the seedling network, Sabrina felt Quill's essence track the feedback from their disruption. The lens revealed a trail of distinctive magical residue leading deeper into the forest. A flicker of movement caught her attention. Through the trees, a cloaked figure turned and fled, their retreating form barely visible in the shadows. The lens captured their magical signature, a unique pattern of energy that Sabrina had seen before, during the Spring Magic faction's recent demonstrations in the town square. "They're getting away," Noah started forward, but Sabrina caught his arm. "Wait," she said, studying the lingering magical traces through the lens. "This area's still unstable. We need to secure the medallion shard first." The seedlings gradually retracted into the earth as Quill's essence settled. Around them, the forest slowly returned to its natural rhythm, though the ground remained scattered with an unnatural mix of autumn leaves and spring petals.